And now's the time when things are shifting. There's gonna be a new world order out there.
My fellow Americans, I've said on several occasions that I wouldn't comment about the recent congressional hearings on the Iran-Contra matter.
All right. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the What is Truth podcast. I'm your host, Wheezy. And today should be an absolute banger. I have Mr. Peter Duke. Mr. Peter Duke, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's the pleasure is mine. And I think the audience is going to really enjoy this conversation. I've been binge listening to several shows that you've done, Mr. Peter Duke. We first became acquainted on the Union of the Unwanted a couple weeks back. And we were talking a bunch of different topics. And there was a couple times where you and I shared, the same views. Maybe no one else, or not everyone else in that panel probably were thinking the same thing, but like, oh man, I could really vibe with Mr. Duke here. And so that's why I wanted to bring you on. You were front row and center on J6. You've been in the same room with Steven Spielberg. You've worked for Sega DreamWorks. You've lived a very fascinating and interesting life. And so I'm sure we will have no shortage of topics to talk about. But for those that may not be familiar with you, if you can give us a little brief background before we get started.
Where do I start? I was computer science. I'll start at the beginning. When I was 9 years old, my dad gave me a camera and I wanted to be a photographer. And I went to UC Santa Barbara and I became a computer science major because I was lazy. And the College of Creative Studies computer science department was directly across the lawn from my dorm room. And so I figured I could sleep later. And so I became a computer science major. But I always wanted to be a photographer. And so when I got to a certain point at UC Santa Barbara, I applied to go to Art Center and my dad wouldn't pay for it. Long story short, I dropped out of college and I became a photographer and I wound up shooting fashion and shooting for magazines and doing stuff like that. And at one point, this thing called the internet happened. And because I was a computer science major in college, I actually knew how things worked. And people started asking me questions about how to make things work. And I wound up leaving photography and becoming the director of design at News Corp. And I built the first entertainment website on the World Wide Web. It was called thexfiles.com. And so I worked with Chris Carter at the X-Files. And I did that for a few years. And then I hooked up with this guy named Max Kaiser, who was building this thing called the Hollywood Stock Exchange. And we built the first prediction market with a cryptocurrency on the internet. And then I went and I worked for, after Fox, I went to GameWorks. I worked for, which was a joint venture between DreamWorks, Universal, and Sega. I built the online arcade version of Quake, which was like the granddaddy of all first-person shooters. And I did that for a few years. I was about to launch esports. Spielberg came in to my office one day and asked my boss what we were going to put. GameWorks was a location-based entertainment company. There's still a lot of them around. And we have video monitors all over the place. So Spielberg came in the office one day and said, "What are you going to put in the video monitors?" And my boss said, "Oh, we were going to put music videos." And Spielberg said, "No, you're not." And my boss said, "Well, what are we putting in there? Like when Steven Spielberg goes, no, you're not. Like that's the end of the conversation. And he said, well, my boss said, well, what are we going to put in there? And he goes, you've got to figure out a way to make video games worth watching. And so he walked out of the office. My boss turned to me and he goes, this is your job now. You have to figure out how to get people to watch video games. And so I found the first Quake mod called Quake TV, which was a mod that was set up for letting people watch Quake games, kind of like you could watch a football game. And I was in the middle of installing that and putting together a tournament when GameWorks ran out of money and my entire department got terminated. So I was on the verge of creating esports. I went on and pitched Valve. Valve stole the idea and came out with Half-Life TV. And that's kind of a long story. But in any case, I did the video game thing for a while. And then I wanted to, settle down, get married, have a kid. And I wound up running e-commerce for Virgin for 5 years. So to your point, I've been in the room with, Chris Carter and Rupert Murdoch. I've been in the room with Steven Spielberg, and I've been in the room with Richard Branson. And I ran e-commerce at Virgin for 5 years. Learned a lot. That's a really weird company. And then in 2010, I met Andrew Breitbart, and Andrew Breitbart was saying politics is downstream from culture. And I noticed that people who were saying things that I was never political at any point during this entire part of my career in fashion or in technology. I didn't pay any attention to politics. I didn't vote. I didn't care. Like I was just doing my thing. I was too busy. And so I met Andrew Breitbart when things started early teens, 2000s, I started kind of paying attention to what was going on. And I started thinking that things weren't lining up. The things that I was experiencing in my life weren't matching the things that I was seeing on television. And so I met Andrew Breitbart at a little event on the beach in Santa Monica. And he was saying politics is downstream from culture. And I thought, well, at one point in my career, I did shoot pictures for Vanity Fair. Like I understand how photography, works in culture. And I simply started taking pictures of people who were saying things that I agreed with in order to make them look good. I wasn't making a living doing it. I had a technology career and I made plenty of money doing that. But I had a skill. Which was, I knew how to make people look good. And so I shot pictures of, I think, Scott Adams, Charles Johnson, who wound up becoming my partner, who was kind of like the biggest troll on the internet before Milo, and Scott Adams, Mike Cernovich, and this guy named Baked Alaska. And the New York Times magazine sent a reporter out to do an interview with me. Now, I had a long career as a photographer before I, transitioned into technology, and I was never famous. Like I was never a guy that everybody knew my name. Everybody in the advertising business knew my name because I shot lots of catalogs in the 1980s, but, I wasn't a name photographer. And so the New York Times sent
you weren't like a Douglas Mills.
I don't know who that is.
Douglas Mills is the guy that photographed George W. Bush in Sarasota getting the news about 9/11.
No, I wasn't a Douglas Mills.
And he also shot the fight.
Right, exactly. No, but I did. But here's what I realized after I met Andrew Breitbart: there are photographers out there in the world who are hitmen. That is, they're specific. There's this guy named Mark Peterson. He shoots for Time Magazine. Like if Time Magazine calls you up, Wheezy, and says, hey, we want to send this photographer, Mark Peterson, to shoot you, be guaranteed that he's going to make you look like shit. Okay. Yeah. He's going to make you look like a piece of shit. And so.
But that's through history. And real quick, I cover a lot of Lincoln assassination myself. And one of the photographers in that time period was Alexander Gardner. Alexander Gardner took Lincoln's death photos. He took the pictures, those infamous photos of all the prisoners. He is allegedly also the photographer of John Wilkes Booth's body, but that plate was destroyed later on. I'm assuming because it wasn't John Wilkes Booth's body, but that's another photographer that just keeps popping up. What are the odds they keep using the same guy over and over? So when I see an Alexander Gardner or Douglas Mills or some of these other nefarious characters, they're much more than just a photographer, if you know what I mean.
It's good metadata. I mean, one of the things that I realized, look, when I was in the 80s, when I was taking pictures, the idea that somebody would send me out to take a picture of someone to make them look bad wasn't even in my imagination. Like, that wasn't even something that I ever thought about. I only thought about, how do I make somebody look as good as they possibly can look? And so when I saw the pictures of, it was Michelle Bachmann on the cover of Newsweek, I think. And when I first noticed Michelle Bachmann, I thought, I'd like to take pictures of her because she's a good looking woman and she's saying things that I agree with. Right. And then I see this picture of her on Newsweek. Are you looking for it? And I see this picture of her on Newsweek and she's like, and I think,
yeah, I found it. I'm going to put it up.
I'm going to put it up. So so this is the picture that motivated me to go start taking pictures again, because there it is. Yeah. And the thing is that not only would I not push the button if I was taking a picture of somebody who looked like that, if I did happen to make that picture, I would never deliver it to the editor of the magazine. You know what I mean? I wouldn't do that because that's the way that my kind of like narrow focus of looking at the world was. But I woke up, and that was, probably the beginning of my wake up call, was just to understand that photography is a weapon, like all of the other cultural weapons. And that was kind of my wake up call, that woke me up. And and so one thing led to another, and I wound up getting involved in the intelligence business. There's an acronym, which is MICE: money, ideology, compromise, and ego. And these are the vectors that intelligence assets use in order to infiltrate networks, in order to control assets. And so I hooked up with this guy, Chuck Johnson, who was intelligence. I don't know. I never found out what intelligence branch he worked for. I'm guessing Office of Naval Intelligence. But he was my business partner for about 4 years. And I was kind of an unwitting dupe in a certain way. But I've been around the block. And so I would pay attention to a lot of things that were going on around me. And so he was talking out of the side of his mouth one day about this acronym, MICE: money, ideology, compromise, and ego. And what I realized in retrospect is that my ability to penetrate the MAGA network that I was in was based on ego. I'm a good photographer. I make people really look good. And so there were a lot of people who wanted me to take their picture. And so I wound up kind of infiltrating this network. But again, it wasn't a conscious idea. I just thought I wanted to take good pictures. I was MAGA until January 6th, 2021. I was as MAGA as you get. I was it. And so I am friends with Ollie Alexander.
And real quick, were you the type of MAGA? Because there's like two different MAGAs. There's a QAnon MAGA, and then there's like average American MAGA.
Okay.
Would you say, were you a QAnon?
Well, my entree into MAGA was actually Curtis Yarvin. Okay. So, because Yarvin started this thing called the neo-reactionary movement. And before the neo-reactionary movement got labeled by the New York Times as white supremacist and anti-Semitic, I mean, when the New York Times did the article about me, they called me the Annie Leibovitz of the alt-right, which I found hilarious because I designed, when I was working with Spielberg, I designed the online education system for the Shoah Foundation network. And I'm half Ashkenazi, so painting me with the Nazi brush is really like difficult. Wait, I lost my train of thought. You asked me a question, and I was gonna...
If you were like leaning towards regular MAGA or QAnon MAGA.
Yeah. So I met Curtis Yarvin, and I was reading all the neo-reactionary stuff, and I agreed mostly with I still agree. I think that Curtis Yarvin does a really good job, like many people, of addressing what the functional problems of our government are. Okay. I take great exception with him, and I could talk about that later in certain other situations. But I started reading Curtis Yarvin, and I started thinking, yeah, the government's really fucked up. It doesn't work. They've made a bunch of promises. They've written a bunch of checks that I can't cash, And so that was my entree. And then I was all in on Ted Cruz at one point. And the one and only time that I met with Steve Bannon in New York in 2015. And Bannon was the head of a Ted Cruz super PAC. And I started doing street art. There was this guy named Sabo in Los Angeles who was doing street art. And I liked his street art, but I had other ideas about messages that I wanted to get out there, and I was trying to get people to pay me to do it. And so I went to New York, and I was meeting with Steve Bannon because he was the head of this Ted Cruz super PAC, and I had all these ideas for how to make Ted Cruz look cool. And so I was meeting with Bannon, and Bannon asked me what I thought of Trump, and I said, well, because Bannon used to work with Andrew Breitbart before he died. And I said, well, you know what Andrew would say? And Steve said, no, what would Andrew say? And I said, well, Andrew said politics is downstream from culture. And Bannon looked at me and he goes, well, what does that mean? And I said, it means Ted Cruz is downstream from Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump is upstream. Donald Trump has more clout in the world than Ted Cruz does. And within about 2 weeks, I am not claiming that I was the person who talked Steve Bannon into it. I'm simply saying that there was a coincidental conversation that I had with Steve Bannon in 2015. And within a couple of weeks of our having that conversation, he had dumped Ted Cruz and he had moved over to Bannon. I mean, had moved over to Trump. So,
So I don't know how deep you get into it, but I believe Steve Bannon was one of these founding architects for QAnon, for the QAnon movement, because of his tie-ins to Cambridge Analytica, which is in the UK, and they pretty much do a lot of data farming. And so,
well, let me reframe it this way. I think that you're sort of right. I think he's in the same network. I think him and Flynn are in the same network. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's Flynn is Army and Bannon is Navy. And I think that there's a lot of ONI going on. And the Office of Naval Intelligence, we hear about the CIA all the time. And I'm writing a book right now called Reframing Reality. And I have 4 what I call leading indicators of epistemological warfare.
Yes.
And one of the leading indicators of epistemological warfare is that the more juice a transmedia fear-based story gets, the more questionable you have to be of it. And so there is a knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people to blame intelligence on the CIA. Okay, but the 17 different intelligence agencies in the United States is not just rhetoric. There are a bunch of different intelligence agencies, and they're not all working on the same things, and they're not all going in the same direction. So ONI is not the CIA, okay? But they are American intelligence, and they do share stuff with each other. They do joint operations together, like the Five Eyes groups do operations together, but they're not the same. And so I don't lump everything in the CIA thing. So to your point about Steve Bannon being QAnon, I think Steve Bannon is in the QAnon network. Okay, but I don't think that he was. And I write about this. I think that he's probably sitting at a round table at some point, an organizing group with the people who are doing that stuff. But I there's a lot of evidence that it's being run by MI6 and Tavistock out of Great Britain. To me, I mean, one data point. Again, this may not mean anything, but the Fabian Society in Great Britain, which is responsible for a lot of the tomfoolery in the last 100 years, is named after Quintus Fabius Maximus, and Quintus Fabius Maximus used to sign his letters when he was writing letters to people, Q. So there's that data point. You put that in your pipe and smoke it. Are you there? You look frozen to me. And I have gigabit Ethernet. And now it seems like I'm the only person on Wheezy's show.
Hey, hey, my power just went out in my neighborhood. So I'm joining in through my phone. My computer, all my power at my home is down. So as soon as it connects, I'll put my
all right.
Okay, my power just came on. So holy shit. Yeah, we've had some thunderstorms out here in Florida, and it knocked me out. So I apologize for that, Mr. Peter Duke.
It could just be the Q people going after us.
Yeah, it could be Steve Bannon. I was about to tell you that I kind of have somewhat of a personal story myself. I live out here in Venice, Florida, and nearby is Casey Key. Some of the notable figures of Casey Key are Stephen King has a house. I've seen him walking around. And then Steve Bannon, when he ran for office, actually put down a Casey Key address. You know how you have to put in an address when you're running for government or whatever? He put in an address. And I'm a garbage man. I used to dump the garbage cans at that address, and that was a known, let me put it this way, a Russian mob house before anyone was talking about Russian collusion or any of that shit. That was a Russian mob house, and this is a personal story that you will never hear anywhere else, but because I was a garbage man, I already knew this, so when I saw that address, I'm like, holy shit, you gotta be kidding me. And so that's my little personal Steve Bannon. My power just came on, so feel free to riff off, and I'm going to start up my computer and get off the phone.
All right. Restart your computer. I'll look at the comments here. Somebody, Rocky USA 33 says, Ollie Alexander is a grifter. Ollie Alexander is, he's okay. In real life, he's okay. He probably took your comment to heart because he's not doing what he used to do anymore. I think that he was basically set up. I think he's a true believer. I mean, I was working with him. I believed that Ali did what he did from his heart on January 6th. And I believe that because I was with him when it all went down, and it was not good. That morning, there was a whole bunch of MAGA people that Ali had slated that were supposed to get up and talk that morning, and they all got canceled that morning. So he got shafted in the morning pretty early, and his entire slate of people got eliminated. Trump was, I don't know, almost 2 hours late. It was so cold. It was 33 degrees and sprinkling. So, that's like a bone chilling cold. And I can tell you, I know the guy. All right. And I think that he was as disadvantaged as I was. So anyway, somebody was making a negative comment about Ollie, and I was just defending him a little bit.
Sorry. I got, it's been raining today, and then I kept muting my microphone. You could hear the thunder or the lightning just crash, and it knocked
I couldn't
the
hear
fucking
it.
power out. It was wild. And as soon as we started talking about the QAnon stuff, so make that as you wish. But
It's okay. Take a deep breath.
yeah, I'm good. We're back. We're back. Yeah. So my quick reaction was to shit. He's gonna think that I just abandoned. So I just logged on through my cell phone, and that's when I called you. But yeah, I think we were talking about the whole QAnon and Steve Bannon.
You were talking about being a garbage man. And
Yes.
so I was going to ask you because my ex-wife used to have this joke that she thought that UPS was FBI and FedEx was CIA. And I don't know about where you live, but garbage men in California have always had a reputation for being the mob.
You know what? That is true. That is very true. So I used to work at this company. I left a few months ago, but for 2 years I was working 90-hour weeks. And that company was started by some New York Italians. And they gave up straight up mob vibes. They owned mansions on every damn key up and down Florida. They were probably making $100 million a year. And I was, if not their highest earning driver at that company, or second, top one of their highest earning drivers. And I didn't give a shit how much money they had or whatever, but he would come in for 2 years. He never shook my hand, never acknowledged me. Just you go out and make that money. And I made that fucking money, but I never gave him respect. He never gave me any respect. And then I had enough, man. You're
not the body man.
Well, DOT regulations state that you cannot work over 14 hours. If you work over 14 hours the next day, you got to start an hour later. I averaged 14 to 15-hour days every fucking day for 2 years. These guys were straight up mobsters. And that was the rumor that was going around. They're like, oh, they ran the mob up in New York, and then they bought out this waste business out here in Florida.
The garbage business is great because sometimes there's things you need to get rid of.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I can tell you stories.
You need to make sure that it makes its way into the dump and that nobody ever finds it. I've been doing garbage for over a decade now. There's been times where I go to the landfill and the cops are there with the forensics units there because they got reports that there was a body dumped in the dumpster. Unfortunately, yeah, it's right. It's because they didn't call the right people at the garbage company.
Oh, I mean, we're in Florida. If you're going to get rid of a body, just throw them in the damn lake. Let the alligators deal with it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's that joke about the garbage business being in bed with the mob is not far off. I've had inklings about that for many years, man. How one business gets bought out by another business. It's just money laundering. It's a lucrative money laundering business, and whoever's going to look. Who's gonna really look behind the veil? And you know what? I've heard you talk about how you unfortunately lost your home in the Palisades. I lost my home during the last hurricane, or a few years ago. We got flooded out, so I can relate to you losing everything, man. But I was a wildland firefighter as well. I was a hotshot firefighter. I was at the Angeles Forest Fire in 2009.
I love firefighters that show up.
So I did firefighting. I was a normie. I was not a conspiracy theorist. And I remember thinking, and now that I know about Smedley Butler's War is a Racket, firefighting is also a racket, because you see these staggering figures of millions of dollars. And most of the time we're just fucking around, not doing shit. And we're getting restless because we want to fight fire. And they're telling us, stand down. We want to get after it. But we're told we can't get after it. So when people get mad about that kind of shit, don't get mad at us. We're down and fucking do it. But we can only do as much as we're ordered to do. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. But and now with Lahaina and all this shit, oh man, firefighting is a racket, unfortunately.
Yeah, and in the Palisades, there was not one fire engine in my neighborhood. I didn't live up in the hills. My ex-wife and daughter and brother lived within 100 yards of that empty reservoir. And but I live down in the village, and there wasn't a water pressure problem in the village. There was a firefighting problem in the village because when I left at 5:30 that night, and there was not a single fire engine in my part of the Pacific Palisades. There wasn't one. And
I believe it. I believe it.
and when I got a half a mile away to the Ralph supermarket, there was 100 rigs in the parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I know what you're saying. I've been in that situation.
Yeah.
It's a goddamn sham, man. It's a waste of taxpayer
And
money.
every fire truck in the Los Angeles Fire Department has a machine that you can drop in a swimming pool. And there are more swimming pools per capita in the Pacific Palisades than any place in California. Okay.
Yeah.
Every other house had a swimming pool. Okay. Water wasn't the problem. Okay. Because every person that I know, including Joel Pollack from Breitbart, he used his kids' sand buckets from the beach to pull water out of his neighbor's pool. He saved his house. Every person that I knew that stayed saved their place.
Yeah. In 2009, when we were there in the Angeles fire, I grew up in Pasadena. Back when Pasadena was the ghetto, now it's gentrified and it's pretty nice these days.
It wasn't really a ghetto.
I'd beg to differ. I grew up there in the 80s, and it was the only time I seen white people was when I saw TV, Full House. That was the only time. So I wish it was
I took TV production classes at PCC.
See, I don't know anything about Pasadena, but it was by Marengo, I think, and Orange Grove, if you're familiar with that area. And that was the hood in the 80s. And the thing is, I was in 09, I was there for the Angeles fire. And it was surreal going back, your childhood, where you grew up in your childhood, now you're fighting fire. But one of the things that was awesome was we were assigned to, quote unquote, protect the Mount Wilson Observatory up there. And that was, goddamn, that place was nuked. I have no question it had to be more than fucking fire, because there was really no trees. Everything had turned into ash. I mean, a lot of people that are not familiar with fire don't realize how hot shit has to get to turn a giant fucking log into ash. I mean, think about when you go camping to a forest fire, you could put a big ass chunk of log and it'll burn all night. And sometimes not even the whole log will burn through. That's how crazy it has to get for it to turn into ash. And that's what the Angeles forest fire was. Everything was nuked around, and except Mount Wilson Observatory, where the Hubble telescope sits. And one of the fascinating parts of that tour was the scientists that worked there allowed us, he gave us like VIP treatment, the kind of treatment that you have to spend big bucks to get. And he allowed us to look at Jupiter and Saturn through the telescopes. And I don't know, this might be cheesy, but I remember looking through that telescope. I'm like, holy shit, my eyesight is traveling light years out there just to see this image in real time. It was surreal. It was cool as shit. But that was as I was a normie, obviously, in 2009. I didn't believe in conspiratorial thinking, but I remember this scientist, as he was giving us a tour of this observatory, he showed us a room that had all kinds of gears that were made in the 1900s and mirrors and glass and all this shit. And he's like, in all the years that we've been operating this telescope, we've only had to change 2 light bulbs. I'm like, what the fuck? My light bulb in my home goes out like every damn year. And here you have 100+ year old light bulbs. Obviously, they're made different from different material.
There's a great YouTube video on light bulbs that talks about how one of the first, again, talking about the oligarchs that control the world. When light bulbs were first invented, I think it's in San Jose, in a fire station in San Jose, there's a light bulb that's been burning for over 100 years. And it's in this video on YouTube. And
that's just like the Hubble telescope place.
When they first invented incandescent light bulbs, they lasted a long time. And there was a consortium of light bulb manufacturers, GE and Osram from Germany, and some other companies from like Japan and China. They all got together and they had a convention, and they decided that they needed to make light bulbs in a way that they would last about a year. And so they modified the thickness of the tungsten filament to the point where they could make them last for about a year, because they realized that if they made them last forever, people wouldn't replace them all the time, and they needed people to replace them all the time.
See, there you go. What you just said, that as a normie back then when I was firefighting, I was like, man, this is like a scam. And if you can, that same idea, you can put that through every aspect of our lives, man. We even in the health business, if they found the secret drugs to cure us of all ailments, they would be put out of business.
I'm convinced that they have. You know, the people at the top, you know, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, they live well into their 90s usually.
Fuck yeah. The royals and all that shit.
Yeah,
100%. And this is what I mean, though. Like, it's not just a light bulb thing. It's all over our daily lives, where they need that constant flow of business. It needs to have a lifespan. Otherwise, they get put out of business. And it's kind of it's a messed up way of doing business, you know, especially when it comes to healthcare, man. You have the cures for all these damn ailments, but you want people sick all the time. So you have a constant flow of patients and whatnot to keep your business going. It's fucked up when you really think about it.
Yeah. Well, when I worked at Sega, I didn't know this, but there were these, you know what JAMA boards are?
No, I have no idea.
So in the 80s, there were all these arcades, right? They're all the, you know, you put a quarter in a machine, you play a game, push buttons, before the consoles came out. And inside, they all take the same computer board. So it doesn't matter whether it's Sega or Nintendo or any of the other half a dozen Japanese arcade manufacturers. They came up with a standard. The Japanese JAMAs, Japanese Arcade and Amusement Manufacturers Association, came out with a specification for a motherboard, which would go into a game cabinet. And the reason is that they wanted to standardize on monitors and buttons. So the only thing that the video game companies actually made were these computer boards and then the stickers that they put on the boxes. The cabinets were basically generic, and there were different button augmentations that you could put on the machine, but then you covered this box with stickers and then you stuck your board into it. So there was a kid that I worked with who wound up becoming, today he's like the lead graphic artist at Disney corporate. So he's the lead artist at Disney, but he worked at GameWorks with me. And this guy loved to collect JAMA boards. It was his thing. And he had like 100 of these like boards, and he had a cabinet and he would put them in. And this is before. And then they came out with this thing called MAME. You know what MAME is? Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator. Basically, it's a way.
My son, my 18-year-old son, he's studying game developing. That's what he wants to do as a career. So I'm gonna show him this after we record it, and he's gonna freaking enjoy and love this.
Yeah, MAME. Segment. So MAME is so on these JAMA boards, each one of them, they had they had memory chips, and the memory chips were integrated circuits. They were burned in memory. So the video game was like a game. It went like a Nintendo cartridge, right? And so somebody figured out how to take these JAMA boards and hook them up with a computer and some alligator clips, and then suck the ROMs, the random ROM is random. Something memory, the ROMs out of the chips on the boards. And so they took what was hardware, and then they made it into software, and then they made these wrappers for them. You can go there's Reddits on it, and there's all kinds of archives, but basically every video game ever made is available in this MAME format.
Read-only memory.
Yeah,
A type of
read-only memory.
non-volatile permanent storage in computers and electronic
ROMs,
devices.
read-only memory. Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's a way that you could hook the ROMs up to a computer and then suck the read-only memory out, and so that's what MAME ran on. So while I was working at GameWorks, this MAME came out, and this guy was all depressed because he had thousands of dollars worth of these JAMA boards, and now it was all being replaced by something that he could keep on his machine, on his computer.
Yo, and
So you can play
fascinating
every
stuff.
video game.
Yeah, I did want to ask you on your J6 participation. J6 is one of these events that I had been deeming fake and gay. And excuse me if that offends anyone, including you, Mr. Duke. But
It was fake and gay.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. The thing is, so what drives me nuts, I want to hear you, but what drives me nuts with a lot of, so last week, Steve Poiconen, shout out to my boy Steve Poiconen. He may listen to this down the road. He's the host of AM Wake Up. And he may, after hearing this, he may have you on his show, AM Wake Up, which is an amazing show. I encourage everyone to watch. But Steve and I now have this tradition. Whenever a fake assassination attempt on Trump happens, we do a show almost immediately. Like, this shit is fake and gay. Well, anyways, we did one last Sunday, and another friend of mine, he may be listening to this, Billy. He used to be very, very conspiratorial thinking. Now he's kind of turning back, morphing into a normieism, apparently.
How sad.
Yeah, it is sad. And one of the things he says, well, show me the proof, show me the evidence. And what drives me crazy is, how do you not understand that? Think about a crime scene. When a crime scene happens, what do? They cordon off the fucking scene, and only law enforcement are allowed to investigate it. So with these things, how the fuck am I supposed to provide the best proof when no one is allowed in? They are investigating themselves, and so on and so forth. But going back to J6, watching the footage, watching the fucking Jake guy with his bullhorn and antlers. I'm like, this is the cheesiest, corniest fucking thing I've ever seen. This is fake and gay. I had no proof. I had no evidence. And so as I binge watched and listened to your show, you were a photographer that was there. So let's hear your story.
I was the photographer. I was the official photographer for the January 6th for the Stop the Steal committee. Okay. I went to all the Stop the Steal of it. I didn't go to Georgia, but I went to all of the other ones and took pictures of all those people. I was interviewed by my buddy Jason Rink, did an interview with me in Arizona. And as I was walking out of my interview, the next guy walking in to be interviewed was that guy, Jake Angeli, who is the guy that you were talking about. So I met him in Arizona. He was dressed in a suit with a tie on when I met him. He didn't have the garb, but
oh man, that's disappointing. So I want to hear your story, and then I'm gonna find the clip. I'm gonna message one of my buddies. There's a clip where my buddy Steve, the guy I told you about, AM Wake Up, they had Jake on his show, and they were asking him questions. They were grilling him because they didn't believe his shenanigans, and he's like, "Have you guys ever heard of Operation Gladio?"
So here's my setup. I got there early. Okay, so I got there the day before, and I was supposed to meet with Ali, and I was supposed to figure out what was going on, and he was oversubscribed. And so his assistant gave me a schedule and a map for January 6th on January 5th. And so I had an assistant with me, and my assistant was a friend of mine who I hired, and he was a specialist. He's one of the world's leading authorities on the occult and esoterica. Like he can talk you up one side and down the other of the Kabbalah. He understands all this stuff. And so I couldn't get anybody to tell me what was going on. So I looked at him and I said, let's just go walk the plant. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, let's take the map and go to all of the places that we're supposed to be tomorrow so that we know where they are. Okay. And we know how to get there and figure out what the best way is to get there. And he said, okay, so we're walking down Constitution Avenue and we're heading towards the Supreme Court, because on the schedule that I had, after Donald Trump's speech on the ellipse, he was supposed to walk down, I think, Pennsylvania Avenue like Martin Luther King, okay, leading all the MAGA people to the House of Representatives. That was what was on the schedule. And I wanted to be, sorry, so now I have fire engines. And I wanted to be at the end of the street shooting Donald Trump coming up the street. So I wanted to get there first, right? And so I needed to know where they were going to be the next day. So we're walking down Constitution Avenue. I'm heading towards the Supreme Court. And my buddy Pat Moyse says to me, he goes, "Hey, look at Baphomet." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Look at the hermaphrodite." I said, "What are you talking about?" And he points up at this building, and we're walking in front of the Andrew Mellon Auditorium on Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. And he goes, "Look up there at the top of this." So it's got a pediment, and I'm sorry if the fire engine's in the background.
Oh, don't worry about it.
It just turned off.
They're finally arriving to put out that fire.
Yeah, exactly. I like it when the fire trucks show up. I like firemen when they show up. Let's put it that way. But I didn't know what to make of it, and I got back and I took pictures of it. And there is a picture, the pediment. Suppose I looked it up later. In fact, I've written stories about it, written articles on my Substack about it. But it's a dude with boobs.
What?
Yeah, you could pull it up. Andrew Mellon Auditorium. I probably have pictures I can show you. Wait, when you start to riff, I can go get the pictures. But anyway, it's Columbia, who's supposed to be the patron goddess of the United States of America. And you have to ask yourself, when did we vote on having a patron goddess of the United States of America? And there's all of this language around the buildings and why they got built in Washington, D.C., that they're built in the Greco-Roman tradition. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
But they have all of this, pagan symbolism. So Columbia, who's the patron goddess of the United States of America, is a dude with boobs, is a hermaphrodite.
Whoa.
Okay. And at least on this building. And I believe that this building is actually where the real government of the United States meets, because it's where NATO was founded. And if you look at it, it looks like a Greek temple. And whenever they do events, it's always shrouded in purple. Purple is, there it is. And
he's got some titties.
Okay, but look at that leg. Is that a babe?
Yeah.
Is that a babe's leg? Okay, look at the shoulder. She looks like
she's asking for it. Hell yeah.
Look at the shoulder. Okay. It's like she could be middle linebacker on the New York Jets. It's like, okay, it's like, okay. So then I get another block away, and I find, and there's this statue, which if you want to look it up, it's called Heritage, in front of the National Archive. Okay. And Heritage in front of the National Archive is another one of these dudes with boobs, only in one arm, he's holding a baby in a sheaf of wheat, and in the other arm, he's holding an urn or an amphora.
There we go, right here.
And it took me a couple of years of doing research to figure out what it was all about. But this is a Phoenician baby sacrifice statue. So on the base of this statue, it says, the heritage of the past brings forth the harvest of the future. And in Phoenicia, the Phoenicians, not all of Phoenicia is famously Tyre and Bilbos, what we know now today as Lebanon, which is a place that's highly in play as we're speaking right now.
Yes.
That's where the Baal worshipers were. And so the Bible is full of stories of the Jews getting rid of the Baal worshippers. And the Baal worshippers wound up in the central Mediterranean. So they wound up in Carthage, North Africa, in Malta, in Sardinia, and Sicily. And so they had in those places in the world, they've discovered these things called Tophet circles. And Tophet circles are where the Phoenicians used to sacrifice infants. And it was there's a woman named Josephine Quinn who wrote a book called In Search of the Phoenicians, and she teaches at Oxford. She's done the best research on this. And where they find these baby sacrifice sites, which are always shaped in circles, they have these jars that are buried, and in the jars are the remains of sacrificed infants. And they have they look like gravestones that are over the burial sites, and they're called stelae. And this woman named Josephine Quinn, she translated over 700 of these stelae, and they're Costco receipts. They're basically transaction receipts. It's like we sacrificed this baby in order to get this thing, in order to get this harvest, in order to get this safe passage of a ship. Okay. So they would sacrifice children in order to get some bounty in the future. So what that statue is, that was commissioned in 1930 and put up and sculpted on site in 1933. Okay. So less than 100 years ago. Okay. This baby sacrifice statue was put on the steps of the National Archive. I know you asked me about January 6th, but this was my wake-up call on January 5th. Because I looked at this thing and I took a picture of it and I thought, what the hell is this? Why is this on the steps of a federal building for this country that supposedly I'm going to go fight for tomorrow? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
And
wild.
and it wasn't until about 6 months ago that I figured out that it's a baby sacrifice statue. And
wow.
okay, so we have baby sacrifice. So, and the Statue of Liberty is a castrated shepherd named Attis. If you want,
how do you spell Attis?
Attis. If you want to search for Attis statue Rome, there's a statue of Attis in Rome, and Attis was the lover of this is we're talking like 1000 BC.
So I've been doing a lot of research into that, and I'm going to tie it into the Butler theatrics at some point.
Okay, there's sort of a picture of it on a guy's thumbnail on the right side there. It says, after 3 days, Attis lives.
Right here?
No, down below. That one laying down, but that's
okay.
Oh no, it's on the bottom. It's the gray one on the bottom row. Yeah, click on that. Yeah, make that bigger. You can.
There we go.
If you get close, you'll see that it's got the exact same face as the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's not showing on the thing. Let me share this tab right there.
There you go.
Holy shit, that is the Statue of Liberty.
Right. Okay, so this is a shepherd named Attis, who's the lover of a goddess named Cybele. So it's the cult of Cybele and Attis. And he fell in love with Attis, and he pledged his undying love to her. And then as soon as Attis went away, he fell for a naiad, a little nymph at the river. And he felt so bad about betraying Cybele that he castrated himself. And then he bled to death. And Cybele was so upset that whoever the patron god was, that they turned Attis into a pine tree. And so you have to, and there's always celebrations of Attis with pine trees. So
Damn.
what other celebrations do you know with pine trees?
Christmas.
So, and what did
Yeah.
Addis cut off?
Yeah.
And what do we
Gee.
hang on trees? Okay. So there's a 300-foot statue of a castrated shepherd in New York Harbor.
Yeah.
And the people who put it up told us that it was the goddess Liberty.
Yeah.
And I've got news for you. There's no goddess Liberty.
Gee whiz, man.
Okay.
Yeah, I had no idea.
But this is what happened to me on January 5th.
January 5th. You're finding this shit out. That is wild.
Right. So on January 6th, I show up. And January 6th was great because there was a great thing happened on January 6th, which was I met my wife.
Okay.
I wasn't married at the time, but I'm married now, and she's in the kitchen doing something, and our dog is running around. But
there you go.
January 6th, colder than shit, just unbelievably cold. Because I'm in the VIP area and we have to go through security and everything, they want everybody there early. So we have to get there 2 hours early anyway. And then Trump was almost 2 hours late coming out.
Yeah.
Okay. Then he comes out and he doesn't say any. I've been watching him every speech for like months at this point, and he comes out because he says I was with Ali in November. We were in DC. We were on stage when Trump tweeted out that we should all come to Washington, DC on January 6th because it's going to be a wild time. And I looked at my phone and I looked at the tweet and I looked at Ali and I said, what does this mean? And he goes, I guess it means that we're going to DC on January 6th. So I was with Ali when he found out about it. And so Trump was really, so we were all waiting to find out what the wild time was. There's 250,000 of us. By the way, I was talking to you about Tophet circles.
Yeah.
The ellipse, I think, is a sacrifice zone.
Whoa.
Okay.
So I was in DC last year for the 160th anniversary of the Lincoln assassination. Like I said, I'm a self-proclaimed Lincoln assassination researcher myself.
Okay.
And so I walked around DC and everything. I had never been prior to this, or I should say I had never been to DC prior to this. And that was one of the things that stuck out to me was the amount of symbolism, the Masonic influence all over the place, man.
It's all Freemasons, yeah.
It's all there, man. You go to the Capitol, you got the black and white tiling all over the damn place. You go to Ford's Theater, which is where the Lincoln assassination took place. Right across the goddamn street, the Masonic Temple is there. You go to George Washington's cemetery, it's a Masonic grounds. So the Masonic influence at DC is zero doubt, man.
Well, here's where it gets crazier. I wrote again, I'm writing this book, Researching Reality. I'm reframing reality. And I have a thesis. And my thesis is that there's an oligarchy that runs the world and that they use the same pattern, which I refer to as the double move. And much of my research is simply involves looking up the definitions of words. And one of the great things about large language models is that you can skip dictionaries, because one of the problems with dictionaries is that there's something called hermeneutics. And hermeneutics is the politicization of translations. And so if you understand that there's etymology with words, that words come from other words, and that you can trace things back, right?
Yes.
Then you can learn a lot by simply just figuring out what the origin of the word is. So
and where it comes from.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people don't realize that in everyday language, you're using words from different cultures. Like a lot of people don't even realize they're speaking Nahua, which is the language of the Aztecs. For example, chocolate, avocado, those are Aztec words. That's the etymology. And English being the language that has
It's the language of slaves.
yeah, and it colonized the entire world essentially. It has incorporated a lot of the words from different cultures and different language over time, and people don't even realize it. So
It's way worse though, because the way that English is translated, when I say that English is a language of slaves, the way that the words have been translated is to eliminate critical thinking. You know, we talk about how there's on Union of the Unwanted, I know that you guys talk about the lack of critical thinking all the time. If you,
I beg to push back a little bit.
All
I
right.
get invited like once every few months on there because I'm pretty freaking raw.
okay,
But yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
the translation of a lot of our words winds up defeating us in our ability to think critically. So I'm writing this book called Reframing Reality, and my thesis is that if we understand how language works, we can free ourselves. Okay, that's basically it. And that we are born with the ability to do that. And the key to understanding how to defeat the oligarchy is to understand how language is used as a weapon, because it is something that you can do now, today. And you don't have to organize, and you don't have to get a bunch of other people to join your cause. If you can actually just teach yourself how to think critically and then show other people how to think critically, period. But there's something called that I call the double move, because you brought up Freemasons. And I was doing research. Again, I'm doing all this research for my book, and I wanted to know what the word Pharisee means.
Whoa. I've heard, see, you may disagree with this because I've heard you on other podcasts, but there's other people that have characterized Jesus as also a Pharisee. He was just not happy the way the Pharisee movement was going, which
I would say,
I don't know.
I would say epistemologically that is not true, and I can defend it. But
That's
his technique is anti-Pharisee. Okay, and that's the thesis of my book. So basically, what the Pharisees do, the word Pharisee means the separated ones. Okay. The separated ones. Okay. And it's from the root form of the word parash. And it's a P sound, not a F sound. That was a transliteration problem from Aramaic to Greek, but it's really parisy. And what they do is that they claim exclusive authority over a specific piece of information or a text. In this case, in the Pharisees' case, it was the Torah. And then they create a boundary condition by virtue of their claiming their authority. So they claim an authority, and then they defend a boundary condition. And if you take a look at the logo for Freemasons, it's a compass and a square. So what do you do with a compass? You define a boundary condition. What do you do with the square? You measure people to determine whether or not they fit inside or outside of the boundary condition, whether or not they are sacred or profane. So this is what I call the double move, is that you create a boundary condition and then you defend it. There it is. So you use the compass to inscribe a circle, and then you use the square to determine who gets to fit inside the circle and who gets outside of the circle. Inside the circle are the sacred, outside of the circle are the profane. So you can apply the same model to the national security state, which gets to decide what's classified and what's not classified. Okay. And who gets to decide whether or not something is classified or not? The national security state. Who gets to decide whether or not something is clean or dirty? The Pharisees. Who gets to decide whether or not something is sacred or profane? The Freemasons. Who gets to decide who gets to go in the Mormon temple or who doesn't get to go in the Mormon temple?
Yes.
Who gets to decide whether or not you're clear or not clear in Scientology?
Who gets to decide if the Charlie Kirk incident took place at the Beehive State?
This is
They're at UVU, which is like Mormon capital of the entire fucking state, man.
okay. It's all double move.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's all fake and gay.
100%, man.
Okay, it's all double
Yes.
move and it's all fake and gay. So anyway, January 6th, it's freezing.
Yes.
I leave the ellipse early because I'm a still photographer. I'm not shooting video. I got enough pictures of Donald Trump pointing at me like this. Okay.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, I got enough pictures. I'm going to try to get to the Capitol before the march starts. Okay. Because I don't know anything. None of
Right.
our phones are working.
Right.
Okay. We're not getting Twitter or anything. AT&T has these giant towers all over. I'm sure they were tracking everybody's movements, but
Oh, yeah.
I had no signal. I had AT&T and I had no signal, and I couldn't tell what was going on my phone the whole day. Like my phone was basically useless the whole day. And so the first thing that happens is that I leave the ellipse and I get caught into some kind of a soccer style crush, like a soccer hooligan style crush.
Right.
And I'm stuck. I'm literally stuck for like 40 minutes like this with 1,000 people around me. And if any of them sneezed or fell down, I would suffocate to death.
Right.
Like, so that was that. So finally Trump stopped, and I was just heard Trump like droning on in the background. I go, God, make him stop talking so that people will start to move. And so finally he stopped talking, and then I just bolted up the mall as fast as I could.
Right.
And I got to the barricades that were around the Capitol, and I had a credential that let me go through the barricades. So I held my credential up. I went through the barricades. I ran to the place where there was supposed to be a stage set up where Donald Trump, Alex Jones, and Ali Alexander were going to speak. It was on the schedule. It was all ready to go. I get there, and there's a trailer there, but not really a stage. There's no PA system or anything. And all that stuff was supposed to be set up. None of it is there. Okay. And then I turn around, and there are all of these guys who are obviously military,
Whoa.
dressed in plain clothes,
Yes.
who are unhooking all of the gates around the barricades that I just had to show my ID to get through. So I show my ID. The guy lets me through. I run to the place where it's the stage. The total amount of time that I'm talking about is maybe a minute. Okay.
Yes.
And I turn around, and there's all of these guys, and I go, this isn't right. And I think, I don't have anything else to take pictures of. I'm going to start taking pictures of these guys. So I start taking pictures of these guys, and then all of the grandmas and the grandpas and everybody shows up and there's no Trump, there's no Ali. I see Alex. Alex is like wandering around back there.
Yeah.
And I'm on.
Did you see Fuentes?
No, because he was in the front.
Okay.
He was on the west side. I was on the east side. I went to the west side, but you couldn't get close. And I had
you had to show one of these west side.
West side. I had already been almost crushed to death once that day, and I looked at the west side and I thought, I'm not going in there. That doesn't look good. So anyway, I go around to the east side, and there's an MRAP there. There's like one of these
military Humvees,
and somebody's let all of the air out of the tires.
Holy shit.
And there's these high and tight and squared away guys. I took pictures of them. if you go to, I'm trying to think about where to find the pictures. If you go to my Twitter, if you go to my Peter,
I'll go to your Twitter.
If you go to the Duke Report and look for, if you can search on my Twitter for operators.
Operators. Okay, go ahead and start riffing. And I'll look for that.
Anyway, I'm running around and there are these guys that are standing on top of this MRAP. And I noticed that one of them's got in the TV business, we call it a PL, a private line. He's got like one of these invisible earphone microphones that newscasters use, and he's got like a curly thing running down his back. Yeah, there you go. And there should be 4 pics. So the guy in the red hat, I call him Red Hat, but these guys are high and tight. So the guy on the left, he's got a high and tight haircut, right?
Yeah.
This is what the Marines call that.
Marines,
haircut.
yeah, it's a Marine
high
haircut.
and tight, and he's got a Marine schmata on. If you zoom in close, he's got a Marine schmata on, and this other guy on the right is using. Now you can see you see who he's looking at. He's looking at the police. He's signaling the police. When I got there, the crowd and this crowd of people behind, 90%, 98% of them are grandmas and grandpas. They're like, not operators. Okay. But this guy is coordinating the retreat of the police from the bottom of the steps to the top of the steps, because if the police had not moved from the bottom of the steps to the top of the steps, nobody in that crowd was going to push against the police. Those guys signaled the police to retreat. Okay. And I shot pictures of them the whole time. I have a whole series of these guys. You can see the guy in the lower left-hand corner. You can see the guy, you can see his PL in his ear. See how he's got like a thing in his ear? Maybe there's another picture where it's more evident if you go to one of the other pictures. But look, he's got breaching gloves. See those gloves? Those are operator breaching gloves. Those are mechanics. Yeah. Mechanics wear gloves. Look at his.
He's got scissors and shit right here.
Right, and he's got that Trump thing. He's also got a see how it's like a candy cane stripe around his pole.
Yeah,
with the red, white, and blue. Nobody else had a pole like that. And he's got this other guy's got a Trump flag, and it was a unique flag. Nobody had the same flag. And he's got, I managed to get a really tight shot on his backpack. It's got a Louisiana, see that, so you can see the PL in his ear. And this is when I knew that these guys were operators, because this guy ID'd me and then called it out. But you see that
is wild, man.
You see that badge march on the Capitol?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was friends with Ali, I showed the pictures to Ali, and Ali said, that's a fake credential. And I said, what? And he goes, I know every credential. I had to approve all the credentials. That's a fake credential. So these guys, and so Ali called me the day after January 6th, and he said, the FBI wants your pictures. And I said, no problem. And I put all of my 1,300 pictures, I put them all in my Dropbox, okay, for the FBI the next day. Okay. Yeah. Ask me how many times the FBI called me.
I will venture to guess, and I don't know, I would say 0.
0. Yeah. Ask me about, I had lots of friends who got subpoenaed in the January 6th committee. How many subpoenas did I get from the January 6th committee?
Again,
0.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's because
wild,
it's
man.
because they don't want my pictures in the record.
Yeah, you're gonna fuck up their whole narrative, man.
Right.
And so I've heard you say this. So I guess the question that pops into my head as I hear you say this, I'm like, doesn't that freak you out, man? Doesn't that worry you? That the FBI doesn't want your shit because you might fuck up their narrative. Like, damn, this guy might be some trouble here. We may have to take.
That's why I published all the pictures.
Yeah.
Because what I've discovered again is that they'll only kill you if they want to if they want to keep you from revealing something. And if you just reveal everything that you've got as soon as you get it, like it's hard for them to do anything about it.
Yeah, yeah. Eh, oh man, yeah. That's some. You know what, Peter and Mr. Duke. I should
Call
call
me
you Mr.
Peter.
Duke. I know, but I want to give you some respect for that, because not too many people in that situation would want to do that. Because, and I don't want to say, I don't think you realize. I know you fully realize you're a super intelligent human being. But god damn, that would freak me the hell out, dude. If I was in your position, I'd be like, I'm gonna lay the fuck.
What makes you
I'm
think
gonna
I'm
lay
not?
low.
What makes you think I'm not freaked out?
Yeah. Well,
You know,
yeah, you're right. I didn't ask you that, so my bad.
like, you know, I look here. Here's the thing. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I was there, and I realized uh, in retrospect, because I always try to figure out when I'm looking at my pictures what it is that made me take that picture.
Yeah.
In 1984, I was standing on a set shooting a picture of a girl wearing a $39 sweater, pushing the button
$39 in that time or in today's time?
in that time.
Oh, so it was a high end.
It was okay. It was a $39
Okay.
sweater, and I'm shooting pictures of this girl, and I'm looking in the camera, and I'm thinking to myself, what is it that makes a woman looking at the picture that I'm taking right now buy that sweater when I push the button now, as opposed to when I push the button now? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
one of those pictures is going to be better at selling.
One's gonna go viral, and the other one's gonna be like, whatever.
And
Yeah,
so,
man.
And so I was, so from 1984, I had always been thinking about, when I push the button, what is it that's going to make somebody looking at this picture think something about whatever it is that I'm pushing the button and thinking. Because
Yeah.
because ultimately, when you're a photographer and you take a picture, you're not the audience,
Right.
right? Somebody else is the audience, and so you're
Right.
trying to figure out what they see. So
But
what I realized,
doesn't your bias come in sometimes, and you have to fight your own bias? You're like, I like this shit a lot, but maybe this other way is the way, and so you kind of have to wrestle with that. And I'm only saying that I'm
always,
not a photographer, but
always.
because I make thumbnails, you know what I mean? I make other shit, and so what I like may not necessarily resound with other folks, you know what I mean? So you have to constantly be battling your own biases.
Always,
Yeah.
always. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't separate yourself from yourself. Everything always goes through the filter of you.
Right.
So, so anyway, but what I realized in retrospect is that there was two kinds of people on the steps that day, and I don't normally like dichotomies. I don't, because I
Right.
think they're fake and gay, but
Yeah.
in general terms, I think there were people who didn't know what was going on, and they were trying to figure out what was going on. I was one of those people.
I
Okay.
think that's done by design, because when you do these events, it gives you that natural look of realism. If you're mixing in feds with people that have no fucking idea, and look what happened in the aftermath with J6. And I'm sorry to cut you off, Mr. Duke, but my buddy George Hobbs of the Fact Hunter podcast, he had been interviewing this guy that was a military vet, super decorated, anti-war these days, but super high. He was there at J6 because he felt there was an injustice going on and whatnot, and they fucking railroaded him hardcore. He's still in prison. He was one of these legitimate persons that was protesting government tyranny. Now you put in feds in there, and I would say someone like a fucking Jake, the guy with the fucking horns on his head, that was a fucking fed. And now that I'm on that subject, my buddy, shout out to Greg, he sent me that clip, and I want to play it. This is Jake on AM Wake Up, where as you can see on the top left screen, that's Jake, the guy. If you guys remember J6, the guy was wearing the fucking outfit with the horns and all that bullshit. This is him, and my buddy Steve. There's Ryan Christian. I will be having a podcast with Ryan Christian tomorrow, Sunday. And Chris, He's there, and check out this bullshit misdirection that he tries to pull on my buddies from AM Wake Up. Let's see, God damn it, where is that clip? Okay, here we go.
I didn't have any audio, but I had my.
Oh shit! Oh, okay.
I had my mic muted because my neighbor has a bandsaw going right now or something.
Okay, I'll replay it. No worries. So basically, the conversation was going to shit at that point in time, and Jake comes in, and goes, "Are you guys familiar with Operation Gladio?" And Steve, let's see. Okay, let me reshare it. Share screen, application window, sound. All right, let's try this one more time. Okay, here we go.
Are you guys familiar with Operation Gladio?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Operation Gladio, for those in your audience that are not familiar.
That was classic. Let's try that one more time.
Are you guys familiar with Operation Gladio?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Operation Gladio, for those in your audience that are not familiar with it.
So I'm trying to understand what your point is about Jake Angeli bringing up Gladio.
So the conversation was going to shit. My buddy Steve AM Wake Up, he's of the same mindset of me. Ryan, Krishan, we all, even Chris, we all thought J6 was faking gay. So they invited they invited Jake to expose his ass. And
right.
The heat was getting up to him. They're like, are you guys familiar with Operation Gladio? That's the context behind it. He was trying to distract. And so if you looked at my buddy Steve, they're like, yep, we already know about that, buddy. You know, they were making fun of him for trying to misdirect the conversation because they expose him as a goddamn fraud. That's the point of that clip.
Right.
And that's what makes it funny.
Yeah. Well, again, there was a lot of that there. Like I said, I shot pictures of those guys, and at one point, again, you can say, I know that when I admit to this stuff that people then start thinking I'm controlled opposition or something else. But again, because of my intelligence asset business partner, who I didn't understand how in deep he was, I was an early participant in testing Clearview AI. You know what Clearview AI is? And I actually had it on my phone. Okay, for a long.
Give a brief description, if you don't mind, to what
Clearview AI is Clearview AI is a facial recognition app that is used by today. It's used by law enforcement, but and it was financed by Peter Thiel.
Yes.
And when it was in my first startup that I did, or my second startup that I did with Chuck Johnson, was financed by Peter Thiel, WeSearcher. So I was in that orbit, for a while. I was a normie. I didn't know what was going on. And so I had, but because of my background, because I had 20 years of working in the technology business, the CEO of Clearview gave me a copy of Clearview for my phone, because he would ask me questions about how I thought the interface could be better. So I was, he gave me the app and I was using it and giving him notes on, you need to make this button bigger. You need to make this query work in this way. Like I was, giving him technical advice on how to make the app work better. But, and then there was a New York Times article or Washington Post article about Clearview, and they buttoned everything down and they took the access away from anybody who wasn't an employee of the company. So I lost my Clearview access after January 6th, but I still had friends who had the app and had access to it. And so I gave them all of the photographs. And the thing is about Clearview AI is like about 98% of the time, you give me a picture of somebody, I can tell you who it is. Like and the The dirty secret of Clearview AI is that it's not really a technology, because Clearview AI uses APIs from Facebook, from Apple, from Microsoft, from Google, because they all have facial recognition APIs. But what Clearview has that nobody else has is that they have a bigger database. And the reason that they have a database is because the guy who started the company was a hacker. And he understood that if you scrape Facebook, you're violating their terms and conditions. But he knew that there were other hackers in Belarus and in China and in Romania and in Malta and in Israel that were scraping all the pictures on Facebook and putting up their own websites that were kind of knockoff websites on Facebook. So Clearview didn't actually violate anybody's terms and conditions by scraping their websites. They scraped the scrapers, and that's how they built their database of over 3 billion faces in the first couple of years. So clever.
Jeez. Yeah.
He didn't break any laws. Okay. And he built, and so he's using technology. They're using technology from Facebook, from Google, from Microsoft, and Apple. Okay. And then they put together this database, and you put a picture into it, and it goes and it matches it against their database of 3 billion photographs. And it says it's either this person, or this person. Now, you still have to go verify. Like, as a journalist, I mean, I work in journalism. I'm still doing this to this day. Just because you have a picture in Clearview says that it's the picture, it's the person. It doesn't mean it's the person, right? It means it probably is the person, right? But you can get false positives in it. But what I know from working with those guys is that law enforcement has people that are working as undercover assets. And law enforcement can give a face to Clearview and ask Clearview to take the face out of the database so that they never get a positive on undercover assets.
Do you think that's what happened at J6?
Well, I can only tell you what I know.
Yeah.
What I know is that I took very good pictures of the faces of those 3 or 4 guys that I thought were running operations.
Whoa.
And I had them run through Clearview.
Yeah.
And I got donuts.
Oh, damn.
Okay. I got nothing back. Okay.
Man, that would freak me the hell out right there. How did you feel when you got donuts?
I thought they're operators. They're inside. They're inside. That means that they're official.
Yes.
That means they're official.
They've got connections, man. See, I'm so pleased to have someone that was right there. You got first-hand experience on J6. And from what I understand from, binge listening to many episodes that you've done, that was kind of your wake-up call to seeing that.
Yeah, between seeing the child sacrifice statue on the 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the fake and gay thing that happened
on J6.
On J6.
Do you think Ashley Babbitt was killed? I've seen videos where I don't buy that at all, man. Like one of the freeze frames shows the gun way the fuck up here and her head is way down here. Like, how is that a kill shot? By any stretch of the imagination.
So like I said, my book is about epistemological warfare. And I again, and most of the things that are in my book, I've already published as different articles on my Substack.
Yeah.
So
let people know your Substack.
My Substack is thedukereport.substack.com. But if you just type in thedukereport.com, it will take you to my Substack.
Let's plug that in because I want all my listeners follow Mr. Peter Duke, man. You also have on your website like a synthesis of books. Like if you don't want to read the entire book, you can get like a general gist of the book. Fucking amazing shit, man. I'm already in it and I am a massive fan. So if you can follow Mr. Peter Duke, show him some love by being a paid supporter, subscriber. do that. But yeah, Mr. Peter Duke, go on. I'm sorry, I just wanted to plug that in.
That's okay.
In
if you want,
midway. Yeah.
I can plug away for a second. So the Duke Report, I've been working on this book ever since January 6th. I've been working on this book because I thought I don't know what the hell is going on,
Right.
And like I said on the Union of the Unwanted, I started with Richard Grove and Jay Dyer and James Corbett, and then I just started binging on those guys. But even they have holes.
Yeah. Yes.
And because I'm a generalist, because my job was creative director, people don't understand what a creative director means. They think it has something to do with art or something. And a creative director is simply the person on a project who defines what the creative problem that the project is trying to solve,
yeah.
and then making sure that the right people are there to solve it. So if it takes
kind of like a supervisor.
It's a creative lead is what they call it at Disney. But basically, I understand what the effect of this thing is supposed to be when it's finished. Okay.
Right.
And if that means that I need to hire a writer or a sound man or a cinematographer or an animator or somebody to do music or whatever that is, whatever the pieces are that need to get put together in order to make this thing work, that's what a creative director does. So so I just took the same kind of creative director skills that I've got 20 years of doing at places like Fox and GameWorks and Virgin, and I just applied it to what the hell's going on. How does the world actually really work? And so I came up with this thesis, which is called epistemological warfare. And epistemology is the science of how do you know that?
Yeah.
How do you know that's true?
Right.
And I just started applying that to everything, and trying to figure out a way to explain it to people. So on my website, there's an article called the 4 leading indicators of epistemological warfare. And the third leading indicator of epistemological warfare. Okay. So the first leading indicator is that media serves power, not truth. Period. Okay.
100.
The second leading indicator of epistemological warfare is that the more saturation a transmedia fear-based story has, the more likely that you need to question it. Okay.
Right.
So if you're hearing about nuclear weapons on TV, in the movies, on the radio, in fiction, in nonfiction, okay, if Stanley Kubrick is making movies about it, then you have to start wondering whether or not it's a psyop. And I think nuclear weapons are a psyop. So every time,
man. So Mr. Duke, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to get into this eventually. You are a photographer, and one of the biggest topics that I talk about on my channel, for example, is the moon landings, how fake and gay those are. And so to have a professional photographer, someone that was at J6 for crying out loud, what are your thoughts on the moon landings?
They're fake.
100%.
They're fake.
100%.
And I shot pictures of Buzz. I shot pictures of Buzz Aldrin. I have a picture of myself on my Flickr with Buzz Aldrin. He's the weirdest guy I ever shot a picture of.
So, you as a professional photographer, what would you deem as the biggest proof? And as I say this, one of the things, so I have some friends that have a YouTube channel. They've been massive against the moon landings. And then they get terminated and then restart their channel. And these guys are astrophysicists, engineers, super intelligent fucking guys. But one of the, I mean, everyone has their own proofs and evidences against it. But one of the things that I tell these guys, and I'm just a garbage man, I go, look, we need, as people that don't believe in the moon landings, we need to stop acting like we are the ones that need to present evidence. No, the claim was made by NASA.
Well, you're going to like my book.
NASA's the one that said, We made it to the moon with 1960s era technology. My view is I refuse to accept that fucking claim. Simple as that. That is all. I
Right.
don't know why most people can't fucking gravitate instead of, oh, well, we
Because
got to do this, we got to
TV.
do that, we got to do this, and we got to do that. No, fuck all that shit, man. It's simple as that. You
Dude,
guys
it's
are claiming that man landed on the fucking moon in 1960s. I
Wheezy.
don't accept that shit.
Wheezy. It's the double move.
Yeah.
They
I'm sorry,
took-
man. I
they
get
took
passionate
account-
about
they
this
took ac-
topic
No,
right
no,
here.
no. But I'm trying to connect a dot for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Because once you understand the double move, you see it everywhere. They created a boundary condition, and then they defend it. I have a whole chapter in my book called "The Castle Keep Defensive Structure." Okay.
Mm.
Because
Is that the book you're working on, or
Yeah.
is that the book that's
I've
already
written-
out?
there's an article on my Substack, and it's a chapter in my book. The
Okay.
chapter will be much more in depth and precise than the article that's on my website. But if you go to my website and you look for the Castle Keep is a strategy of epistemological warfare that is used in order to cover up things like the moon landing. Okay. You've got a moat. Okay. And then you've got fallback positions. Okay. You've got the moat is things like the moat is defended with language, and it uses something called thought terminating cliches. The guy who wrote the book on it is Robert Lifton, called Totalism and Thought Reform, or Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, I think is the name of his book. Conspiracy theorist is a thought terminating cliche. It is a string of words that is designed to take people's thinking and shut it off like a light switch. And so
Yeah.
the way that you defeat it is when somebody calls you a conspiracy theorist, you ask them why they're using a thought terminating cliche to shut down thinking. Okay.
Mm.
That's called a meta move, because what you're doing is you're going up one level in the hierarchy of ideas, and you're talking down to them, literally.
Yeah, well, one of the ways that these people that you just talked about go about it is by saying they add whatever the topic may be. They add denialist, or whatever.
Thought terminating cliche. You just
denial.
you flip
You're a moon landing denialist.
Okay, you use interrogative, you use a question. Instead of making a statement back to them, you ask them a question. You say, why are you using a thought terminating cliche? And I guarantee you they won't know what a thought terminating cliche is. So the first
I
thing
didn't even know what it was until you pointed it out. Thought terminating cliche. I love that.
Yeah, why are you using a thought terminating cliche?
Yeah. That's freaking awesome.
Okay. They'll go, thought terminating cliche, what's that? And you go, it's an expression that's designed to shut down thinking. Why are you trying to shut down thinking? Because thinking people, okay, consider more than just the narrative that they have been spoon-fed. So one of the things that I talk about in my book, and I make a big deal about this, is that the purpose of our education, media, and government is to create people who know things.
Mm.
And knowing is a static process. The thing that we're all born with is the ability to think. And in fact, even the words in the New Testament, John 1:1, have been tweaked. So John 1:1 says, "In the beginning was the Logos," and in English, it's "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Okay. What does word mean?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a nominalization. It's a noun, right? The word is a noun. Well, in Greek, it was written in Greek.
Right.
Okay. And in Greek, it says, "In the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and the Logos was God." Okay. So what does Logos mean? Well, if you look up Logos in Greek, and there's something called the Liddell Scott Jones lexicon. that was written in like the 1890s that has every word in Coney Greek in it. There are 5 pages of definitions for the word logos. And logos is a verb. Okay. It's an action. It's a thing you do. Okay. And in the simplest terms possible, it means to discern, question, test, weigh, and articulate. So if you read John 1:1 as in the beginning was the ability to discern, question, test, weigh, and articulate. And the ability to discern, question, test, weigh, and articulate was with God. And the ability to discern, question, test, weigh, and articulate was God. Then the self-evident truth of that is that if it were not for God, I would not be able to have a conversation with Wheezy right now.
You know, so I was born and raised Catholic. I am no longer a believer, but I'm still interested in the Bible. I made it a goal this year to read chapter by chapter of New and Old Testament, and it's way different as a non-believer, way different. But I wanted to ask you, in relation to a lot of this faking gay shit, you know, I was doing some deep dive research. Have in history, has there ever been some fake attempts, some fake assassination attempts that we know about that has been recorded, quote unquote, in history? And so I believe Butler was faking gay, and
Totally.
there you go. Peter Duke
Totally.
concurs. The latest one, the congressional dining, totally gay, fake and gay, homosexual, whatever the hell you want to add to it. But so I did some research, and I found an fucking rather interesting rabbit hole in this guy right here. This is Pisistratus. Now there's obviously different variations to his name. There's Pisistratus, there's Pisistratos. But the long and short of it is this guy apparently was like a war hero in one of Athens' wars. So a lot of the common folk, a lot of the people in the
How is his name spelled again?
I like to say Pisistratus because it sounds funny. So P-I-S-I-S-T-R-A-T-U-S. Pisistratus.
Because
So-
pistis in
go ahead.
in Greek gets translated into English as faith. And in Greek, it means a belief based on the presentation of evidence. So the word in the Bible, when it was written, which means evidence-based truth, gets turned into faith in English, which means belief without evidence.
Yo.
This is epistemological warfare
Yeah.
because
So-
it changes the way that people think.
So check this out on Pisistratus. The story behind Pisistratus is fascinating. If you think Butler was faking gay, if you think the congressional dinner, you will love the story of Pisistratus. Pisistratus reigned around the year 550 BC, somewhere in that area. He first started off as a war hero. And the people so there was 3 different classes in Greece. There was the people that lived in the mountains, which was the landowners. They were the wealthiest class. Then you had the people that lived on the coastline, which was like the fisherman class. They were in the middle class. Then you had the people in the hills, which were the poor motherfuckers, the people that lived in the towns, the beggars, and all that bullshit. Pisistratus was a war hero that had a lot of support by the poor people of the hills. And he faked the fucking attack on himself. He bruised himself, bloodied himself, showed up to downtown Athens, all fucked up and everything. And he's like, man, they're trying to kill me. These political rivals are trying to kill me. So the city of Athens granted him 50 armed bodyguards. And with those 50 armed bodyguards, with the support of the fucking poor people, which was the majority of the fucking people in Athens at that point in time, he became tyrant and ruler of Athens. Then after 5 years, he got deposed, and he faked another fucking. And this is Herodotus wrote about this in his history, and he faked another comeback. He faked 3 fucking comebacks. This guy, Pisistratus, he in his second comeback, he found this giant lady. So in a time when women were probably about 4'8", 4'9", 4'10", he found the 6 foot woman, 6'5" woman, giant ass woman. They decked her out in armor, and they put her in a chariot, and they had her rolling into Athens saying, I want Pisistratus as the king of Athens. And so he staged another event. It wasn't just the first stage. He staged a second fucking event. And guess what? Pisistratus became king of Athens a second fucking time. And then the third time he gets elected. Now, if you read through the history books on Pisistratus, he's known as a benevolent tyrant. So even though he's still categorized as a tyrant, he was a good guy. He was actually on the side of the poor folk. He vouched for them. He fed them a lot of bread and circus bullshit. Like, he built a lot of public works to keep the people distracted from what was going on in government. So to me, when I found this rabbit hole of Pisistratus, I'm like, holy fucking shit, man. This shit went on 2,500 years
Nothing's
ago.
new. It's Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, nothing's new.
How is it any different than today in 2026? It's the same fucking bullshit. You have Trump at Butler faking like he got shot, but if he had not turned his head at the right moment, his head would have got blown off. Get the fuck out of here with that.
No,
nonsense.
He had a blood pack under his hat, and he bent over and he smacked the side of his head, and then he stood up.
Yeah,
but Corey Comparatori. I mean, do you follow Michael Hoffman?
No. So I don't know anything about that. My thought on Corey Comparatori.
There's something about people who have alliterative names. CC. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
There's a whole double. It's called the double letter murders. There's a whole.
Well, not only that, but 3-3. C is the third letter in the alphabet.
It's 3-3, right?
3-3.
And his name is Co-Imperator. Okay, which and if Trump is the Imperator, if you know anything about scapegoats,
yes,
then there's always the goat that gets sacrificed and the goat that is released into the wilderness, right? So his name is CC 3-3, like you said, and he's the Co-Imperator.
Yes.
So he's the scapegoat.
Yes.
And they ushered that guy into that spot. I don't know if you followed much about how he got to be in that seat at that time.
So my thoughts
in that.
Yeah,
in that
my
seat.
thoughts on that on Corey Comparatori, for example, is that it's possible because a lot of things, normies, for example, will quickly talk. Well, someone died on that. You're saying it's fake. Well, someone died. Dude, they could absolutely kill someone to give it that effect of realism.
It's called a blood sacrifice.
Yeah, it absolutely can be. And so what I pointed out was, if you listen to the whole scene, the whole event, you hear nothing but quiet. And then you hear one gunshot and a shrill, like a death-defying shrill. And that's what I feel. I could be wrong, but I feel that's when they took out Corey Comparatori. Yeah. And so in my mind, yeah, blood sacrifice. Also to give it that effect of realism. Oh yeah, there's fuckers that think here that this was fake. Boom. what do you think about this shit? Someone really died in this event. And so that gives it that effect of realism.
So what do you think about Epstein?
So here's my thought. It was introduced to me a while ago, and it makes a lot of fucking sense, man. So Hillary Clinton's brother, Tony Rodham Clinton, passed away 2 months prior to the Epstein quote-unquote death. Tony Rodham Clinton and Jeff Epstein look like fucking doppelgangers, man. I'll Google it up.
I believe you.
Yeah. They look like fucking doppelgangers. And Tony Rodham Clinton, according to his Wikipedia, this isn't me making shit up. You go to his Wikipedia. It says, if you read through the lines, he was the black sheep of the Clinton family. And his death wasn't announced by anyone special. It was announced by Hillary Clinton via Twitter. His death was officially announced through a fucking tweet by Hillary Clinton. So my theory is that Tony Rodham Clinton was frozen. A couple months later, they're like, all right, we're thinking about this and that. Fuck, we got Tony Rodham right here. He looks like Epstein's doppelganger. We're going to wheel this motherfucker out. We're going to let Epstein out. That is my theory. I don't have any evidence except for what I presented, but that's what I believe.
I believe you. So where do you think that he went, though?
I mean, he could be anywhere. He could be in Dubai. He could be in Israel. He could be any fucking where.
All right. So here's where you can put a tinfoil hat on Peter.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. This show is all about the tinfoil hat. I don't shy away from that shit.
So I work for Spielberg, right?
Yeah.
So did you ever read Hannah Arendt's Eichmann in Jerusalem?
No. What is that about?
It's about the trial of Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem after he was kidnapped by the Mossad in South America and taken to Jerusalem. And it was originally published in Hebrew in Israel, and I don't think it was released in English for 13 years after she wrote the book.
Whoa.
Okay. So you got to fact check me on the number. I know that there was a delayed publishing in English for a long time. Okay. And the critique of the book is that Eichmann was banal. That is that and if you hear James Corbett talk about it, it's that Eichmann was banal about his dealings with the Jews. But there was a tasty morsel in that book that when I read it, I couldn't believe it, and I had to go research it. And that is that Eichmann was testified in Jerusalem that he was really disappointed when the high command decided that they were going to kill the Jews instead of the project that he had been working on with a dozen people for over a year. And that project was to ship them all to Madagascar.
Yeah, I have heard about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I interviewed what was his name? He was a British journalist, Gerard Williams. I interviewed Gerard Williams. He passed away a couple years ago, but he was on the History Channel Finding Hitler. And this Gerard Williams was one of these guys. He was a normie 100%. He didn't believe in any conspiracy theories at all. I mean, when I interviewed him, he was bragging about how he just recently got back from getting vaxxed. This is how normie Gerard Williams was. But the one conspiracy theory he believed was that the bullshit story that we've been told throughout history that Hitler was in a bunker and killed himself with Ava. He said, that's bullshit. There is zero evidence for that.
Right.
The skull that they found was that of a female. It wasn't even of a fucking male. So there is zero evidence for this claim that has been passed around. Today I was on Twitter and randomly someone put, I saw a tweet that said, Hitler died in a bunker in Germany as the Allies were closing. I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. There is no evidence, but this has been passed as fact. And so Gerard Williams, a full-on normie on everything else, the one conspiracy is this, that Hitler went to Argentina. And to me, as someone that studies history and looks at all this shit, but I don't believe in any of this shit. I think it's all propaganda and nonsense. I'm like, okay, great. So Hitler made it to Argentina. That means he was allowed to go to Argentina.
Yeah,
that means that the Americans allowed him to go to Argentina. That means that the fucking Russians allowed him to go to Argentina, and he lived there happily after. What does that tell you about the entirety
Cold
of
War,
World
the whole
War
Cold
II?
War.
It was all bullshit. Exactly. Right. The Cold War, the fucking NASA, the moon landings, it's all fucking horseshit to the highest degree, man.
So here's, again, I want to focus my conspiracy here. There was a movie made by Jeffrey Katzenberg called Madagascar. What are the races of the animals that they shipped to Madagascar?
Black and Jews, wasn't it?
Blacks and Jews. Okay.
Yeah.
Who were the bumbling fools that kind of reminded me of Eichmann? Okay. Who were really responsible for the animals winding up in Madagascar? The penguins. What color do penguins wear?
Black and white.
Right. And
congressional dinner attire.
Do penguins have elbows?
Nope.
So when they smile and wave, what do? They do
the Heil Hitler.
Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Yeah.
So I think that movie, Madagascar, the whole series of Madagascar movies is a giant wink, what they call a hoodwink in Freemasonry. And if I had to guess where Jim Morrison or Michael Jackson or Jeffrey Epstein wound up living after they died, they're all in Madagascar.
Whoa, that's wild. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, one thing that I've noticed, one pattern that I've noticed the last little while is how we are constantly forced to look at shit in binaries. It's either this or that.
That's a tell. That's an epistemological warfare tell.
Yeah. What if there's a third, fourth, fifth, sixth other option that's available to us? And so with any of these subjects, you're just pinned. You have to choose this or that, and that's it. Wait a minute. I don't want to ascribe to either of those fucking things. You know what I'm saying?
It gets worse, because when that happens and you're put into what's called a double bind, you know what a double bind is?
No. What's that?
A double bind is when you have two bad choices. Get the vaccine or get fired.
Yes.
Okay. Get the vaccine or get that. That's called a double bind. And a double bind creates something called schismogenesis. Which,
whoa.
So you're into Kathy O'Brien and all the MK Ultra stuff, right?
No, okay. To be honest, I'm not.
Anyway, in MK Ultra, what they do is that they trauma-based.
Before you go on, what was it? What?
Schismo, like
schismo. Okay,
like
I got you.
SCHISMO, schismo genesis. So it's a schism is to break in two, and genesis is to birth or to have born. So you're birthing a dichotomy. Schismogenesis is birthing a dichotomy. That's what it means. And so when you put people into schismogenesis, it creates something called schizoaffective disorder. And schizophrenia is a physiological condition that people who have a chemical imbalance in their brain have. Schizoaffective disorder is when people don't have the chemical disorder, but they have the schizophrenic symptoms. And schismogenesis creates schizoaffective disorder on a society-wide basis. So the reason I don't, you probably noticed that after COVID, a lot of people started flipping out. Like I saw a guy in a supermarket who was assistant manager in a supermarket in Novato, California, screaming at the top of his lungs at customers shopping in the supermarket that if they didn't stay 6 feet apart from one another, that we were all going to die. Like he meant it. Like he was a true believer. He was afraid of dying, right? This is schizoaffective disorder, right? This is when the schismogenesis causes schizophrenic type behavior on a society-wide basis. So Gregory Bateson is a anthropologist who worked for the OSS and the CIA, and he briefed those intelligence agencies on creating psychological warfare operations where they could have that effect on populations.
100%. Mr. Peter Duke, we're hitting up on 2 hours. How are you feeling?
I think I probably have about 15 minutes left on my voice.
Okay. Yeah. 100% respect to that. I want to get your thoughts, if you don't mind, on the Charlie Kirk theatrics. I saw the whole Charlie Kirk stuff. Initially, I thought like, oh, damn, this is kind of wild. The more I looked into it, I'm like, this is also fake and gay. The way Eric Kirk was reacting, holding her alleged husband's hand in the casket and seeing her come out with pyrotechnics and whatnot. Like, this is bullshit, man. And obviously, as time progressed, I saw other videos of people saying, look, they could have shot easily into the back of the Cadillac back there, to give it that realisms. There was even a guy that even faked how the shirt could have reacted. Complete fucking garbage, man. And this is someone, when I made a clip, I didn't know what was going on. I made a clip on Facebook. It got 1.2 million views on Facebook, which was wild, especially of all platforms, Facebook. But I made a clip, it got 1.2 million views. And I didn't say one thing or another. I was just promoting the idea there could have been multiple shooters. In retrospect, I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't even think the motherfucker even got killed, man.
It could have been I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right. And, I look at the Zapruder film and I wonder whether or not what I'm looking at actually ever even really happened, because that's the only motion picture that we've got. And it took them 10 years to release it.
Yeah. And not only that, Mr. Peter Duke, but
maybe John F. Kennedy was in Madagascar.
It was on a fucking world stage. What was the name of that TV show where the Zapruder film was released?
And Dan Rather said that his head went violently forward,
the other way,
and in the video, in the film, his head goes fine. That's the opening on my pre-roll for my own podcast.
I have a different intro, and it's same shit, man. Where Dan Rather says it's this.
I was looking at your intro, thinking, it's just like my intro.
Yeah, when you look at the video, it's the complete opposite of what we're being told.
Well, I repeat it 3 times. Dan Rather goes, his head went violently forward. His head went violently forward. His head went violently forward. And I show his head going violently backward.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to have your brain splattered over the back hood of the car if it's going forward. But in any case, Charlie Kirk, I wrote an article on my Substack called the Charlie Kirk ARG. And do you know what an ARG is?
No. What is that?
An ARG is, and you're into video games. Boy, you got to read this article.
Yeah, hell yeah, I will.
Okay. An ARG is an alternate reality game. So I was in the video game business, right? So I was right there at the beginning of internet gaming. I was right there at the beginning of esports, and I was pitching, agencies on doing using Machinima, and then they made machinima.com. And, I was right there at the, trying to get things going. And there was this thing that started happening in the, like I said, before 2000, in the 90s, called alternate reality games. And Xbox came out and they had this alternate reality game called I Love Bees. And it was a real world game where you're creating alternate realities in order to be able to pull people into an imaginary game situation. And it's got specific mechanics. And these things had big budgets, and I cover it in depth on the article. But an alternate reality game starts off with something called a rabbit hole. And then there's information drops. And the information drops are called ticks. So a tick would be like, the rabbit hole would be Charlie Kirk video gets spread on the internet. Okay. And then a tick would be that Kash Patel says we got him. And then an hour later, they don't have him. And then a tick is they found a rifle. And then a tick is they
33 minutes, 33 hours.
30. Yeah, it took 33 hours. Okay.
To find them.
That's a tick.
Yes.
Okay. It's and the thing is about ARGs, the way they're set up is that you spread the information drops out across all different kinds of media. So you do one information drop on Twitter, you do another one on YouTube, you do another one on Facebook, you do another one on Instagram. Okay. You do another one on the news. Okay. You do another one as inside information on the Candace Owens show. Another one as inside information on Ian Carroll. Another one is inside information on Steven Crowder. Okay. That it's like tick, tick, tick,
Yeah.
tick, tick. And what is the result? The result is that it focuses the attention and it burns cycles, because in order to reconcile all of this data, you need groups of people doing it on the internet. So it's community. Yes. You build communities of true believers, right? Who are trying to solve a problem. So Charlie Kirk is an ARG. It's an alternate reality game. Is he dead? I don't know. I don't know. It looks to me like he's dead, but it also looks to me like it wasn't a gunshot. It looks to me like he had an exploding mic, the same way that the Israelis killed all those people in Hamas with the pagers.
Or it also looks like,
but that could be a tick. That could just be a tick.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen those clips? There's this guy, he's like from Poland or he's a European dude. Fucking genius, intellectually freaking smart guy. He's like, well, if you look at the sound, he's analyzing the sound waves and everything. He's like, they could have easily, there was like an underground little thing where they shoved them and then put them in the Cadillac and then shipped them the fuck out. Because how many other incidents where someone gets murdered, they obstruct the crime scene as they did with Charlie Kirk? You know what I mean? There'd be all this yellow tape and all this evidence collected, but no, he was allowed to get escorted out and flown the fuck out. Get the fuck out of here, man. This smells like bullshit to high heaven. And then you have Candace Owens, who I deem as a PSYOP influencer. And Erica Kirk.
I think Candace is a true believer, though.
She could be a true believer.
I think she and Baron Coleman, I think they believe what they're saying.
Yeah, but I think they're spouting out bullshit.
Baron Coleman's another one too. I know Baron, but it's kind of weird to me because like Baron had a successful law practice and he quit the law to do YouTube. Like, how many lawyers do you know that stop being lawyers one day because they're going to do YouTube? Like, that's kind of a weird flex, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's a business at the end of the day. This is this is the aspect of it that a lot of people have a hard time understanding or grasping, that this is a business, this is propaganda. Some people will die through this propaganda. And so their minds have a hard time of conceptualizing this. And I don't know, man, after looking at history, and I say history in between quotes, because how much of this fucking history that we've been taught is actually real.
I have a whole chapter in my book about it. Yeah.
I'm gonna get your book, Mr. Peter
Sure.
Duke. And you know what? We're going over our 2-hour time slot. I want to respect that. I want to have you on again, man. I feel we only just skimmed over a lot of this shit, and we can go even deeper than what we did tonight. Because I feel you and I view the world in much the same lens, where a lot of this shit is manufactured. This reality, what we perceive as reality right now, isn't really reality. It's all bullshit. There's strings all around this nonsense. It's guiding us to believe a certain way or a certain thing. And I'm not buying into it. And real quick, with the Hitler shit, man. The Hitler shit, for me at least, is fascinating, because a lot of people will say, the vast majority of people say Hitler was the most evil person of all time. Da, 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 da. And then you have a small minority, a small but loud minority will say Hitler was a saint. I'm in the camp that says, fuck, he wasn't the most evil motherfucker out there, but he also wasn't a fucking saint. He was promoting eugenesis agendas and all these other new world order
American eugenics program.
Yeah, he was promoting all these new world order agendas that these other minority peoples refuse to accept. And so I'm of that mindset that everything is a fucking sham, man. Everything is bullshit. And we're fed a stage, and it's getting hard, especially with AI. It's getting harder and harder to tell.
Well, have you read my article? Have you read any of my stuff on Putzi Hofstangl?
I'm going to read on it. Hell yeah.
Do you know who Putzi Hofstangl is?
No, I haven't. Give us a little taste on that.
Putzi Hofstangl was Adolf Hitler's handler.
Mm.
And he graduated. He was born in Germany, but his mother's family were the Sedgwicks. So they're Boston Brahmin, New England, Anglo-American establishment family. And Putzi Hofstangl graduated from Harvard and then was sent to, after he graduated from Harvard, I think he had an art gallery on Fifth Avenue during World War I, and he was German. And so he had to use his family connections, the Roosevelts, to keep himself from being blacklisted during World War I, because there was the whole thing with the Germans in World War I. Anyway, after World War I ended, this very successful art dealer in New York moved to Germany and was assigned to Adolf Hitler by an American State Department attaché, who was an American Army colonel named something Smith, who was referred by MI6. And he went to the Munich beer hall and connected with Hitler, and then became his handler.
Yeah.
And he was the money guy. He's the guy who put Hitler together with all of the people who, the donors who wound up supporting the Nazi party. He was a concert pianist and concert level pianist. That is Putzi Hofstangl. And he used to hypnotize Adolf Hitler playing the piano. And he taught Hitler Sieg Heil from Harvard football cheers. Harvard, Harvard, fight, fight, fight.
Get out of here.
So the Sieg Heil was born at Harvard football games. He helped write the Nazi marches. He edited Mein Kampf.
Yo.
And when Hitler started to suspect that he might be working for the British bankers and the city of London and Wall Street, he escaped out of Germany, and he spent World War II in a house that was provided by Franklin Delano Roosevelt that was 2 blocks from the White House.
Gee whiz, man. Again, the world is.
He was Hitler's handler for 14 years.
Yeah.
So that's I got the guys who put that together are Jim McGregor and John O'Dowd. They wrote a book that I think is the most important history book that I've ever read. It's called 2 World Wars and Hitler. It's on Trine Day, and it came out about 2 years ago. And if you don't ever read another book ever again the rest of your life, that's the book to read.
That's awesome. I'm definitely gonna check it out. I'm one of the, so my mindset these days is pretty much the only history that I buy wholesale is that of the Mongolian Empire. And the reasons for that is because they didn't really write down their own history. A lot of the history has been pieced together by the people's asses that they kicked. You know what I mean? And so that's where the history comes from. And obviously from the travels of Marco Polo and whatnot. And so,
yeah, but even Marco Polo is messed up because
hell yeah.
If you read conventional history about Marco Polo, what you get is that he brought back spaghetti.
He also claimed that he helped the Mongolians be in a battle against the Song dynasty, that he's the one that introduced catapults to them. Like, motherfuckers, the Mongolians knew about catapult engineering way before you even existed, Marco Polo. So
well, you know what Marco Polo brought back to Venice though, that
What's
changed the whole world way more than
the Black Plague.
No.
What's that?
Paper money.
Yeah, that's true.
China
the Mongolians were the first to bring paper
China
money.
was run on paper money, and
the Mongolian Empire.
Mongolian Empire was run on paper money, and he brought paper money back to the Venetians. And he said, "These guys run the whole thing on paper," and the Venetians went, "We can use that."
Yeah. See, that's the rabbit hole that I've been going into because I'm trying to make sense of the world that we're living in today, and so part of that is me going back into history. And so going through the Mongolian Empire, going through Pisistratus, the fucking guy that faked an attempt on his life and then became king of Athens. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, somebody in the chat brought up my I have a book on Amazon, Stealth Power and the Illusion of Democracy.
Yeah.
And what I did is that I took the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion and I read it. And I was reading this other book by Douglas Reed. And what Reed did is that he took 2 paragraphs out of that book and he took all of the socio-cultural identifiers out of 2 paragraphs from the book.
Yeah.
And when you read it, it reads like a handbook on how to take over the world.
Yeah.
And so I thought with ChatGPT, I could do the whole thing. So I took all of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, and I took all of the social references out of it. And I updated the language so it's easier to read.
You know what's wild to me is I've been going through these old writings and whatnot, and the topic of the New World Order keeps popping up every which way. For example, in my podcast, I can't remember what podcast episode it was, but I did a retelling of the Epic of Gilgamesh in my ghetto ass way from LA. So it's a little crass. If you're not into crass language, that may not be up your alley. But I retold the Epic of Gilgamesh. And if you remember, are you familiar with the Epic of Gilgamesh, Mr. Peter Duke?
Yes, I am.
Okay. If you remember, Enkidu was built out of clay by the gods to bring in a new world order. When he found out that Gilgamesh was raping people and kidnapping the youth to be slaves in his plantation, Enkidu said, fuck that shit. I'm bringing in a new world order. And so that was the role that Enkidu played in that. And obviously they fought and blah, 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 and became best friends. And then it became Gilgamesh's quest to avenge that, if you will. But the point of it is the concept of a new world order, of trying to change things that had been into the way you want it to be. And so what did we have with COVID? With COVID, we had, you know what? We don't wear masks, but now we're going to wear masks. And you know what? You're going to get a vaccination. We're going to give you some weed. We're going to give you some cookies.
It's a double move.
It's bullshit. I don't know anything about no double moves, but from my garbage man experience or whatever, I'm just deeming it bullshit. And that's what, if you look back through history, and that's the thing, a lot of people don't even bother to do so. Due to the nature of my job, I look for shit that I want to learn about. This is how I learned about Pisistratus, the fucking emperor that faked an attack on himself, because I have that time. And so in a sense, that's kind of a luxury that I have. But most people probably don't have that luxury, and they go along with the headlines, whatever they see on their feed, their headlines, and that is their quote unquote reality of what's going on.
It's the epi war. It's been going on for 3,000 years.
100%.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Mr. Peter Duke, this was fascinating. I would love a part 2 if you got
let me know.
You know what? I don't have anyone booked for next week. If you want to do a part 2 next week.
All right. If you want to do a part 2 next week, we can do it.
Yes. Part 2 with Peter Duke.
Go take a look at some of those articles so that we can dig on those. Take a look at the Charlie Kirk ARG. Take a look at the Pharisees and the Freemasons. And you know, pick a couple other ones out. There's lots of, so just for the people who've hung out this long, there's a book section on the Duke Report. I've got almost 1,000 books. And what Wheezy was talking about is that I've done 1,500 word summaries of books that you should have read, but you haven't for whatever reason. And if you don't have the time, and a lot of them you can't get. And so I have 1,500 word summaries. I have links to every different possible place that the book is available. So if it's on Amazon, I got Amazon. If it's on Bookfinder, I got Bookfinder. If it's on the web archive, I've got the web archive. If it's on Anna's archive, which is like Napster for books, I don't know if you're familiar with Anna's archive.
Yeah.
But Anna's archive is like, I'm down with it. I have podcasts on over that I generate with Notebook LM. Some people don't like the AI stuff and they give me crap about it. And I tell you, you don't have to listen to it. Okay. But it does a pretty good job. It's not the same as reading the book. It's never going to be the same as reading the book. But for over 300 books, I have half an hour to an hour podcasts. On over 200 books, I have 6 to 8 minute video explainers on the books. And if there's a YouTube video or a podcast that somebody has done with the author on the book, there are links to all of those. So that is free. I don't charge anybody for it. There's a donate button on it. Like if you use it and you get something out of it, I appreciate it if people take care of me. The best way to take care of me is to become a paid subscriber on the DukeReport.substack.com. But I don't charge for my content on the Substack. So you can go and, you know, watch all the videos or listen to all the podcasts that you want. And I also have a Buy Me a Coffee. If you go to buymeacoffee.com/the Duke Report, there you go. Then you can take care of me there. But all my content is available for you. And what you get if you become a paid member is that you can make comments. A lot of people don't. They go, why do you make people pay to comment? And it's like, well, because then I'm talking to people who are really actually interested in having conversation with me. I answer all my comments. and then I do a Zoom call every once in a while, and so that's what you get. But I want people to understand this stuff. I want people to be on the same level that you and I are at, Wheezy, because everybody should try to figure this stuff out.
100%. Yeah, this was truly a treat. I knew it was going to be a banger, Mr. Duke. And I was just binge listening to a lot of your content. And I feel, to be honest, maybe it's braggadocious, but I feel we brought the conversation a lot further than other shows you have done. It gave people a different insight, and
well, thanks. I like having. I think that the highest form. This is where I agree with Plato. I think the highest form of, or maybe Socrates, that the highest form of intellect is dialogue, talking to other people. And I would much rather have a conversation with somebody than speechify.
Right.
So thank you.
100%. Thank you, Mr. Duke. Yeah, let's plan on that. Part
same
2.
time, same bat channel.
Yeah, same time, same bat channel, everything. I knew this was going to happen. For whatever reason, I just knew that because I had been listening to you, I was like, man, there's just so much ground to cover. And if you guys enjoyed this, wait till you get to part 2. This it's gonna be all that much better. So, Mr. Peter Duke, I want to let you rest. I want to let you rest those vocal cords. I encourage everyone to go to the Duke Report on Substack and follow him there. Mr. Peter Duke, thank you so much for this. And I suppose we can expect you next week.
All right, we'll do it again next week.
Absolutely. All righty. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Easy.
All right. Have a good night. Yes, sir. All right, y'all. That was Mr. Peter Duke. Make sure you hit those links at the bottom of the description so you can follow him there. Great show. I'm excited for part 2. It will definitely be a banger. Tomorrow, Sunday, I have Ryan Christian of the Last American Vagabond, and that will be at 1 p.m. Eastern. So put that on your calendars. Ryan Christian and James Corbett are my go-to guys when it comes to real world shit going on. So if you guys got any questions, message me on Telegram. Let me know what you guys want me to ask. But that should be a good one. I also want to share with you guys that I have a YouTube channel that I'm working on, and it's going to be about philosophy. It's I'm kind of setting it up right now. I got the logo set up, got the banner set up. I even voiced over the script, and before I did this podcast, I went over and edited out the mistakes, so it sounds crisp. It's gonna sound professional and script and all that bullshit. Perhaps tomorrow, after I do the interview with Ryan, I'll broadcast it. I don't have any subscribers right now because I haven't announced it, but I'll announce it here so you guys can follow me there. If you guys are into this kind of shit, it's gonna be about stoicism and philosophy, and I listened over. Obviously I had to go back and listen to the fuck ups and edit that shit out, make it look crisp and clean, and it sounds good. If the sound of my voice doesn't bother you, I'm saying that because there could be some people like, oh, fuck, I hate when Wheezy talks. I like his guests, but I don't like Wheezy's voice. Then maybe this won't be for you. But if you don't mind my voice and I don't yell or scream, it's kind of like more of a reading voice, and it's about philosophy and shit. After the Ryan Christian show tomorrow, I'm gonna link it up. So if you guys want to follow it, there's no videos or nothing. I'm gonna put the link in. Maybe the awesome sweets can put it on the live chat, so you guys can follow there. But I want, so my thoughts behind it is I want that channel to fucking blow the fuck up. Get 100,000 subs, get 200,000 subs, fucking blow the fuck up. And it will be all within the quote unquote YouTube limits. On that channel, I will make zero reference to the What is Truth podcast. This show right here, it's for y'all. It's for the working class. It's for people wanting truth. You know what I'm saying? And as you guys have realized, I don't ask for money. I don't ask for no Patreons or any of that shit. There are some Patreons, and shout out to everyone that's a Patreon. They keep the StreamYard subscription going, and that's all I can ask for. But I feel dirty asking for money. You know what I mean? This is about truth. This isn't about money. One of the reasons why I'm able to speak my motherfucking mind is because I'm not getting sponsored. No one's telling me shit. I'm just speaking my mind. You may agree with it at times. You may disagree with it at times. I completely understand that. But that shows you that the show is organic. It's not no paid in bullshit. You know what I mean? With this other channel, though, I'm going to be using a reading voice. Something soothing. Shout out to all them push-up queens or fucking pull-up queens. But I'll be using a reading voice. It's more of a ASMR type of deal. But the content in it is going to be, it's going to hit. And so I plan on monetizing that on YouTube. I plan on monetizing that on the podcast feed. But I will not associate that account with the What is Truth podcast. You know what I'm saying? Once it gets associated with this fucking show, they'll stop paying me. They'll stop doing all that shit. And so some people may be asking, oh, you care about monetization? Fuck yeah, I do. Because to do this fucking stream right here, where do you think the money comes from to do all this shit? I know most of you understand this. I'm saying it to the motherfucking haters that are going to talk shit. The StreamYard has to get paid. That's 50 fucking bucks a month. 50 bucks times 12 months. Do the math. That has to get paid. And the way I've looked at it, the way I looked at it now, the way I've looked at it for many years preceding this is that why the fuck should I cough out money out of my pocket to entertain y'all? And it sounds like I'm shit talking, but if you've been following me for a while, you completely understand that it's just help. If you guys enjoy this content, throw a few bones and we'll keep it going. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to feel like I have to pay money out of my pocket to entertain y'all. I love doing podcasts. I love it. I don't love paying money to do the fucking show. So it's not a hard concept to understand. So if you enjoy the show, there's a few Patreons. Shout out to all y'all. Let me give you guys a shout out. I don't think I gave you guys a shout out right here. Thank you to Phil, Chris, Blake, Dan Theater, ID Wellness, and Shu Frankie. Hell yeah. They get a fucking shout out. They support the show without me doing this. So that's what's up. Let's see. Anything else? I guess not. Next week we'll have Peter Duke coming on. Dude is fascinating as fuck. If you guys got a glimpse of that, and we only covered a little bit. I'm sure in the next show we'll cover way more ground than what we covered in part one. So Peter Duke next week, and tomorrow Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern, I have Ryan Christian of the last American Vagabond. Motherfucker is balls deep in the current events, so we'll get that. I want to thank everyone that came out. Much love. Hell yeah. Nature Boy, Carlin Hannies, X Sweets, Thing Change Repeat, hashtag Ashley, hell yeah. Weekend JW Hunter. Fucking George. Hell yeah. Thanks for coming out, everyone. That was a fun show. And anyone that I missed, shout out to the Pull-Up Queen. You know who you are. And shout out to my boy PezDispenser.com. Hell yeah, in Australia. It's gonna be cheesy, but I'm truly, truly appreciative of people that listen to the show worldwide. What the fuck, man? What the fuck? I never once imagined that people from all over the world. I got a fucking email from my boy Sigian. Fuck, I'm fucking up your name, bro. Let me pull it up real quick. Gmail. He's from Norway or Sweden or some bullshit like that. But he was telling me that, dude, Wheezy, I follow a bunch of different podcasts, but of all the podcasts, you're the one that keeps it fucking real, man. And to me, that meant a lot, man. I'm like, okay, here we go. So this is the email from my boy Sigian or Siljan. Sorry, I fucked up your name. He goes, well, I don't want to read his email because then he might not email me ever again. But the gist of it is, it's okay. I'll read the last part of his email. It seems to me that a lot of people who have lived and been conditioned to the theories have a hard time using the specific scientific method and see all the lies strange. Thanks for the good show again. And so good you are back. Your show is a beacon of free speech. Thanks. And I believe he's in France, bro. I thought he was in Norway. He's in France. And he also sent me an email saying that while other shows go down the tubes after a while, the What is Truth podcast just gets better and better and better. So I take that as a amazing compliment. And wherever you are, anywhere in the world, anywhere in the US, I want to thank y'all. And yeah, I know we went overtime, and the hardcore will usually be the only ones that follow overtime. So thank you guys so much. It means the world to me. I'm not just saying that. It truly does. So when I launch that philosophy channel, you motherfuckers, you the hardcore, I know you guys will be following it and shit like that. So thank you guys. Much love. Hugs and kisses to all.
Curious what Wheezy thinks, because Wheezy usually comes at something, and I mean that with all due respect, Wheezy, because you usually are pretty good at coming at it from an angle that you have no political, leanings one way or the other. So you're a little bit more able to come at this from different angles.
And it was in one of those areas a couple of blocks away from the World Trade Center site.